yourselves for hungry zombies, killer clowns, masked psychopaths, and chainsaw-wielding fiends. Spooky season is upon us, and we'll be your guide through some of Southern California's finest scare attractions. From nightmarish mazes to terrifying jump scares, we'll be reviewing every creature, ghostly whisper, and scream as we give you an inside look into the heart-pounding, bone-chilling world of haunted houses and immersive events. Turn off the lights, lock the doors, and join us for this spine-tingling special edition of Scripts and Screams. Now your hosts with the ghosts, Jessica Morgan and Chris Carter.
Welcome back to another episode of Scripts and Screams. We're back. Wow.
Scream!
That's, yeah.
I don't know what I was doing there, but we're here.
That's the level of excitement that we're playing with tonight because we are on
Spooky.
number 2.
Yeah, spooky event number 2.
Spooky event number 2.
Dose.
We always look forward to this. I think we were talking about it glowingly in our pre-cap. It's funny. I'm not going to give you the name yet, but you know what you're going to get with it. It's like a number 2 at In-N-Out. You know you're going to be full. You know it's going to be good. Sometimes the fries are not great, but sometimes they're really good. And I think that's what my our event we went to this most recent week was, which was
Knott's Scary Farm.
That's right, Not Scary Farm.
The old reliable is kind of how I feel too.
Tried and true.
Tried and true.
You know what you get with it. You know how it's going to taste.
Yes.
You know everything. So there were a couple surprises, some happy surprises, some big letdowns for me. But were you excited going into this?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we love Knotts. They're fantastic. I think the thing I always go back to is it's like their atmosphere, like they're just walking around, aesthetic of like Halloween feel is just, it's really hard to beat. Like I said, maybe Disney can do it like just as good kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Because it's Disney, so that says a lot that it's like Knott's can kind of compare to that. Because to me, it does. It's really good. I mean, they're known to literally just have a crazy fog area that they do every year.
Yeah.
It's like where they just drench it in fog. They said, oh, "We'll see you in the fog."
Yeah, that's their tagline.
It's their tagline because it's for reals. There is a scare zone every year that will just be completely flooded with fog and you can't see ahead of you. And it's wonderful.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's so fun. It's dark. It's lit with greens and oranges and purples and just drips with Halloween. I think the only other place I can think of that maybe on, lighting scheme might be Hayride, but Hayride isn't really in the same arena, even the same parking lot is Knott's, unfortunately, But
the difference for me would be and this is across the board for Knott's, is the length of the amount of their stuff. You know what I mean? Like Hayride is great because it does feel like you're kind of out around where nobody else is.
Right.
And they do create some good atmosphere, but it's small. It's still a small area. You can basically look across the way and see everything.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, that's not the case for Knott's. Like there is quite an area that you were covering. And even like we said, with the fog, like it's much longer than you think. Well, this isn't some tiny little, I can't see for a little bit walk through. It's like, no, you're going to turn a corner and still be in the fog.
Well,
like,
we got lost, not so much lost, but in some cases we've gone a few years in a row now. And like at some point we didn't know where we were going because of how big and massive Knott's
you can get turned around really easy. It winds and everything. It's like they have a map on their app that you can kind of follow that'll show you where you are, and it still gets confusing.
Yeah, it definitely does.
But in a cool way because of the fact that now you're stumbling onto more interesting and
it's
scare
dark,
zones.
it's Halloweeny, it's creepy. The lights are out, the creatures are out. It's the roller coasters in some cases are still running, which is cool. Like it's just, and bang for your buck. Again, we'll get into what we think at the end on whether people should go or not. But I mean, it offers a lot in return for what you're paying, I think. And I think it blows a couple of the other theme parks out of the water. But yeah. Without further ado, we're going to talk about the mazes. We're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the foods offering, just basically, should you go, I think is where we're going to try and touch up at the end. And also, if you do go, don't miss these things, except we're going to do it in reverse. We're going to be like, hey, don't miss these things. And then should you go?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I know. I am interesting. Thank you.
Do you think we should start with our favorites then? Or do you think we should
That's a good point. I think maybe we should do the stuff that you don't want to miss.
Yeah, let's start with like our favorites.
Okay, I'm gonna run the flag up. Stick around, as my good friend says.
Stick around.
Okay, but are you guys truly friends? Like good friends? Like we're friends, me and Arnold. But I don't know if we're like good friends.
What do you mean? Calm down, Arnold. You're gonna upset him.
Sorry, Arnold. I didn't mean to. I just didn't know we were like that. But I'm happy to have it. I'm happy to be. Yeah.
But I would love to make a Purge movie. If Blumhouse ever listens to one of these things, like I think I would kill a Purge movie. I think it'd be awesome at it. But okay, talking about Knott Scary Farms, talking about the mazes. Of course, that's the big draw to all of the big Halloween themed theme parks.
We're gonna hit these mazes because there were some bangers.
Yeah, and also it's important to note that if these mazes are long, I just want to go out there. One didn't seem any longer than the other, in my opinion. Yeah, they all seemed about. I don't know. I mean, I timed one of the ones we're going to talk about, and it was 6 minutes to walk through.
Which it doesn't seem like a lot when you just think, 6 minutes, but it like to just be walking through and constantly have people scaring you. And that's so long.
It is. That
is so long. It's got to be at least double of what HHN is.
And that's the big caveat that almost everybody I know has done HHN.
Yeah.
But not maybe a third of those people have made the trip out to Knott's, which is crazy. Like, I'm like, you have to go to Knott's. So, going through the mazes is just wild. So I want to go. Well, let me ask you, what was your favorite? Let's go top.
I think we both I think this is both of our favorites. And that was their new one.
Yeah.
8 Fingers 9.
8 Fingers 9.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so brand new maze. They did touch on that it was probably a boogeyman story. Apparently they've had one in the past. That's kind of like this is a continuation of that.
Of that same story?
Yeah,
I didn't
supposedly.
know that.
Which again, I don't know a ton about Knott's before like maybe 7 years ago kind of a thing. Like that's probably as far as I go back with Knott's. But supposedly there's more of a background, but it did, everything in the trailers that they showed, every kind of like thing was like, it's a boogeyman and it has something to do with your fingers and taking your fingers.
Yeah.
8 Fingers 9.
They do a really good, real quick. The Knott's Berry Farm does a really cool reveal for Knott's Scary Farm about like, I think maybe a month before they open.
Yes.
And they did the like an introduction to these 2 new mazes, and they were hyping them up. They do
like a promo kind of, it's an event you can attend, but also they do stream it. So we were able to just go on YouTube and watch it, right?
We're hoping for Knott's press credentials for next time.
Okay. Yeah. Reach out.
Calls
reach
are
out
out.
to us.
Calls are out. But so you were really, that was one that kind of showed up on your radar as they were doing this. Like, oh, that might be cool.
It looked so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, boogeyman stuff. It definitely looked like somebody with really long black hair that's kind of in their face.
Sinister-y. Like in terms of like the creature design, you could definitely tell like, I can't think of what the creature is in Sinister right now, but there were some definitely resembling creatures that kind of had that, like you said, long black hair, kind of arched eyes, pale face, but demonic face and black eyes and long fingers. Yeah, that's Bagul. That's what it is.
Bagul.
So Bagul is the character's name. And that was really cool.
Yeah. It was so sick, guys. It was. And here's the thing that Knott's, I also think, does do better than most other haunts out there, which is that they vary up their scares. And so they do things that are like straight up just like creepy, and then we'll like give a pop or things like that. And this maze to me had everything. It literally, I mean, we talk about triggers. Triggers are something that Halloween Horror Nights does for most of their jump scary things.
Yeah, describe them.
So it's like a jump scare basically in a maze where the scare actor is able to actually hit a trigger like a switch or a pedal, something like that.
It's a pedal.
It can vary for people. It could be a pedal, but they might hit it with their hand because sometimes it's not at their feet.
That's true.
Anywho. And so what it does is it triggers a sound effect and generally lights as well. So, and it's usually loud, and then they pop out with it, and it completely creates a jump scare in real life. And it's great. It works really well. It's the biggest scares I've ever had. Generally, you usually have a trigger with them.
Yeah.
Because it assaults your senses.
Yeah. It's like hunting with dynamite.
So this one technically had a trigger, and Not Scary doesn't generally have triggers for any of their stuff,
right?
Which is kind of nice. It's nice to get different types of scares, and they did that in this. There were times where we had this creature, this boogeyman, 8 Fingers 9 person, like just in the room with you, just staring you down, just being freaky, or then they would come out of the dark at you, or like there was so much variation, and it was so creepy. It just, the whole time I was so creeped out, and I was so enthralled with like the story they were telling.
Yeah, I'm sure you can mention the story better than I could because I was kind of in it. We should say that we went through it twice too.
Because it was so good.
Because it was so good. It was definitely one that we wanted to hit again. But for me, I was enthralled by the set design. I'm obviously, you know, being a filmmaker, like I get caught up in set design and whatnot. And so this one, it's felt so expansive because, you know, you have the face actors, which is something you don't really get in a lot of other haunts, or I'm sorry, like theme park haunted houses. Everybody's wearing a mask, but you know,
these people are just in their face and
which
makeup.
is great. Yeah, they're just in costume and in character, warning of these things to come. I think you have like a medieval courthouse, and then it transitions into like, and this isn't in order. This is my recollection of it, as you know, I can recall now. At one point, there's a bedroom. At one point, there's like a witchy den. And they do a great job with misdirection, and the actor, the scare actor working as the witch in the same room is up on behind like this like a bar, and she's controlling vials behind you that are levitating and moving, which is really cool. A very witchy, very Blair Witch in the sense of like scenes. You kind of feel like you're in a cabin at some point. Then at one point you get to a great design, and it's very much resembling the Rituals kind of monolith, where it looks like it's made from twig and tree parts, and it feels like a very female ritualistic elemental piece. And that was just so good. I mean, obviously our movie just came out, by the way. If you haven't seen it, see it. Night of the Harvest.
Night of the Harvest.
We were going for something like that with one of our offerings initially, and then we came off of it. But the set design for 8 Fingers 9, and then we have the trees. I love when haunted houses incorporate like a forest, because the work that goes into that. And you caught this, I think on the first time you were really on it when you were kind of listening to the story and how this 8 Fingers 9 work came from the woods, the forest, right? Am I wrong? Yeah.
So part of like them being these face actors, like people are just in their normal faces and whatnot, again does well, is that they talk to you. Like, you know what I mean? Like most other places don't have a lot of the actors really conversing with you.
Yeah.
But these guys do. They 100% are just completely conversing. And so they'll tell you stuff along the way. If you run into one of those actors in the scary rooms, if it's not too loud, you can kind of hear what they're saying to you and stuff. And the beginning of this maze had a lot of that.
Yes.
Where it's just the witchy lady that you're discussing, like she was there right at the beginning, and she said something about how he came from the forest. It was like, that was the initial thing. She's kind of like when just building the story right off the bat. And then you run into some townsfolks who like, you know, are warning you about it. And one of them's like missing his fingers and stuff, and says, you know, like he takes your fingers as his prize. And he's like, hide your hands, you know, super cool. And then, we start going through, and I kept thinking it was an orphanage, like the way that
it felt like it.
Yeah, I think it was an orphanage. Because then as we progressed through the story, we started seeing the drawings on the wall too of like the boogeyman, the 8 Fingers 9 and stuff. And,
who looks like a Bagul.
But, and then at some point, apparently he starts putting people in the trees too. Like he'll actually like trap you in the tree.
And there have that, like there's in the haunt, you know, they're molds, but like there are trees with people trying to get out of it, like carbonite.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You start to see like the further you go in through the maze, the further you're in the forest or these areas, and it's like there's like pieces of people, or the wood is made out of like kind of a person. And
it's like petrified with the individual.
It's so cool, and eventually like he's just consuming us, because I think we like walk through his mouth at some point.
Yeah, you go through the mouth, which is interesting,
and then it's towards the end, but
that's like the last, I guess, quarter of the maze, where you walk through that and then you kind of see that people have been ingested like in like the intestines, and like the walls are kind of pinkish and purple. And yeah, I loved this maze. It was so damn, it was long. I think at one point you and I, no, that was for our next favorite one. As you're walking through, there's going to be a moment. And if you've done HHN or other haunts, you're like, man, this thing is still going on. And that's a great feeling to have.
The best feeling when you're just like, oh, it's not over. Like you think it's going to be coming to an end and you're like, there's more, there's more. And
because you pay a lot, you expect a lot.
Totally.
It's like, dude, I just want to enjoy my time in here. And it was my favorite. It was my favorite maze, I think, that we've done. Did you ever go to the Bayou one? I think you did.
Yeah, like it was It was
like a Louisiana one, and it had a lot of the green
voodoo-y kind of.
Voodoo. Maybe it was called Voodoo Bayou.
I think so.
That was the favorite one I've ever done. This was now my favorite because of the set design and the creepiness of it, because this is much more like frightening than that one was. But I love how you get all of this information. You get all of this, it's such a treat for your senses.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Visually speaking, honest story, you're just in it. And I think it's such a huge success for what Knott's tried to do and what they pulled off and the actors. I want to credit the actors. We went through other mazes later where the actors felt less enthused to be there. And I get it. I've been a scare actor. It wears on you. But the actors in this one, because like you mentioned, they're face actors. Yep. So there is no hiding behind a mask or anything. So they wear it well. And the enthusiasm that they had to play their part in this new maze, off the charts. Fantastic.
Totally. Because that's the thing is like, especially we got to go through twice, right? Like we really enjoyed it. So we went back again. And if you ever get to do that, that's when you get to see if you missed anything.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes the second time isn't as good because you're like, there's something that happens in these mazes, which we'll go over a little bit later too, is that they do have to trade off shifts. Like it's people working. So like sometimes there's like the changing over where they are switching out with other actors. They're going to go on their break for a little bit and then have the other actor step in. So there can be times you're going through some of these haunts and you enter a room and there's like nobody there, but you get the feeling like someone should have probably been there.
There should have been someone there.
And it's like, you just missed them kind of a thing. Like they were just doing the changeover kind of a thing. So it does happen and it can ruin a maze, honestly. If you get enough of those in a row, it can be really hard.
Big time.
But this one, and then like you said, there can be less enthusiastic actors because of the fact that you go through and they've changed out and there's different people now.
Right.
We went through twice and it was brilliant both times. It was so good.
And it was like probably towards the park opened at 7:30. We maybe got into this maze at like 7:35. So it was pretty close to that. And then we went again towards the very end of the evening.
Yeah.
And so, but again, with that time span, and we were still getting great enthusiasm from the actors. So
huge.
Really cool. Really
if anything, the second one may have been better, but
yeah.
It was great.
It was.
I can't recommend that one enough. Absolutely go hit it. It's so fun.
8 Fingers 9.
8 Finger 9.
That's
my favorite.
It's your favorite? Dang, spoiler alert. What the fuck?
Well,
Arnold?
we're going over Arnold. And you already did Arnold. It's your favorite too, don't lie.
It is my favorite too, but a close second was one that I was not looking forward to at all. And this is another one that we had heard about on their pitch or their promo when they were unveiling what was going to be at Not Scary. And it was again a completely new maze, and it takes the place of where the depths was at, and it was called Widows. Yeah, and for people that don't, and it's not widows as like women who've been widowed. It's not like that.
Kind of.
No, it's not like that. It's not like that.
Kind of.
No, it's not. It's definitely about Black Widow spiders.
It's about Black Widow spiders, but there is an old lady element to it. So that's why I kind of go, it kind of like plays into that too. I think that's how they mix it.
So it takes place in a nursing home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you walk in right away and there's like a granny outside. So granny inside is super happy to see you. Happy Halloween. Welcome to our home. Ignore that. I mean, she doesn't say this, but there is a giant freaking Black Widow ascending from the roof as she's talking to you.
Yeah. And it's not traditional nursing home, right? Let's set the picture of that. I don't want people to think, oh, you're walking into a well-lit area. No, it looks like a haunted mansion. It's got mansion vibes for sure. Like this is a halfway house. Like
it's still, that's the whole thing. It's still a haunted house. Like it's still, so I think when you first walk in, it kind of feels homely, like just a home, but then it turns into like the nursing home.
Yeah.
And then it like progresses further.
And the set design for this one, in my opinion, was probably better. At least I liked it more than Eight Fingers 9, only because I felt that it was a little darker. I think because they had to hide some of the animatronics. There were obviously it's called Widows. There's a shit ton of spiders, right? A shit ton.
All the spiders.
Yeah, and for those people that don't know, I kind of have a I don't know if it's a heavy dose, but definitely a slight dose. I've been touched with arachnophobia, so it was a whole thing for me, and yeah, there were a couple of spiders that, again, it's wonderful set design. Like Jessica had mentioned, you're walking through the beginning and then it kind of feels like it's an infirmary of some sorts. And like these spiders have laid eggs and then they're popping out. And, you know, some of the patients or some of the residents are talking to us as we're walking by.
Yeah, totally. You get a lot of that interaction at the beginning. And then you start to see people who are kind of half spider, half granny.
Yeah.
And it progresses from there. I mean, it was funny. There's one point you go into a bedroom and there's a bunch of eggs and Chris right away was like, alien eggs.
Those are alien eggs.
Those are alien eggs. And the person in the room was like, no, those are Granny's eggs. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then Granny showed up and was like, have you seen my conquest on the bed?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. And then that's what she was saying. She was like, that was my conquest. He didn't do so well. And then she looked at you and was like, but you look like you could handle a little bit more.
I didn't hear any of that.
That was the first time we walked through. I think you were on full fear alert of like, I am only paying attention to what is going to jump out and kill me. Yeah. But the second time that same granny tried to hit you up.
Yeah.
In that same room.
There's no sugar here.
A day was looking for some sugar.
Yup, no sugar here.
Me, horny grannies.
Yeah,
laying spider eggs apparently.
Just my nightmare.
So the spiders seem to possess these old ladies.
Yeah, like they kind of like meld with them, right? Yeah. And I will say this though, it's hard to do because a lot of the makeup was. I'll say this about Knotts: they do a really good job when it comes to like their design. But I don't like their masks. Their masks are actually pretty bad in a lot of instances.
That's fair. Like they don't have the great, like when they do put people in masks, they're not always great. Eight Fingers 9 was pretty good though.
Yeah, I think that I maybe because there weren't a lot of people wearing masks at some point, but because I think Eight Fingers 9 was more original, because it's hard to make a spider mask. Like, you know,
that's fair.
You know, it's
and they were like, there's people in old lady masks. Yeah. And those weren't great either.
You could tell they were, old lady masks. Yeah. So in comparison, this is where you always get where obviously the company Immortal Masks, who is kind of the mask maker when it comes to silicone, that like a lot of their stuff is done at HHN. I'm sure that there's nothing like that at Knotts. At least I didn't see anything like that.
Right.
But that being said, the set design, again, rocked. You walked down a long hallway, again, mansion-like, spider webs everywhere. There was an animatronic spider that juts out, which is, again, fucking my nightmare. So, like...
And they did a good job of hiding some of them.
They did a great job. They did a great job of doing that. You never really saw where it was going to come from.
It was the misdirection again, which I do think Knotts is so good at that. They have you looking at something else and then it's like to the side, just out of your peripheral, like just right there in the peripheral, I should say.
Yeah.
It like jumps and it just gets you so good.
And it's such a long maze. So again, we keep talking about that, but it's so rewarding and in this case terrifying, where I think in this case, I mean, I told Jessica, I'm like, wow, there's still more to this fucking maze.
Yeah, the first round through, Chris actually exclaimed, "There's fucking more." He was pretty upset about it, quite honestly. Once we got to that point, it was pretty cool because then they did have people in like full spider garb. Yeah. So they actually had like extended legs, like for their arms, and they were kind of coming at you. Yeah. Those were actually pretty cool.
Those were cool. They had like the green, they had like, the fog and the green mist and whatnot. And like these people you're talking about, to have like an actor in that like still, not a still set up, but like extended legs, that was like really cool. That was really cool.
It was. And there's just all these spiders around and you're just kind of looking like which one's going to jump out at me.
That was the big thing, right? Like you can never get comfortable. And a lot of their mazes, we should say, like aren't traditional, like walk through a straight line to get there. Some of them you'll have to walk around something in the middle of the room, right?
They actually like to make you kind of wrap around in the same room and stay there sometimes a little bit.
It's a great use of space. It almost, it doesn't triple it, but it definitely doubles the space you're working with. And it allows for like what you're talking about. For you are literally looking up, down, left, right. Did you pass something? Are you safe now? We're in a linear, like you look left, right, and if you pass it, you're good. You don't really have to look anywhere else. I like how Knott's does that.
They do levels up a lot too. Like a lot of like higher up above you.
There was a cat in this one that was above us. Obviously, because the nursing home and a bunch of old ladies. Although I love cats too. Well, gray and white cats. And so there was a cat above me, and it pawed out, and it made them.
Yep.
Fucking flipped out. Like, you know, it's not.
It was just this black thing moving above you that was terrifying.
It's your mind works out to be like, this is a spider.
Yeah.
It's clearly a spider.
Right.
And it's on top of me. It's moving. It's
Totally.
going to drop on me. This is some new animatronic that you've never heard about. It's like, you know, but yeah, this maze really was great. And you know, as we get towards the end of it, you know, you find out that it's like some voodoo. It's not a voodoo spell, but it is some type, because there's like a queen widow in there, and
she's just taken over. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. She was like calling all her sisters to take over, and she said the human sisters too.
Oh,
so yeah, she was straight up. We're just taking over the world.
What a thought.
That's what I'm saying. Jesus. Widows. I think it has to also do with you know.
What?
Women who lost their husbands. But Black Widow is, you know, kind of the main thread. Yeah, super creepy. I can't say enough about how much this one with the misdirection and the things like that. And yeah, it was cool. There's an area you walk through at some point where the walls get all fuzzy as if like a spider. That was really cool. You know, to the point where you're approaching a wall and there's literally all these eyeballs in it, and you can see the pinchers and stuff, and they kind of move at some point.
Yeah.
And it's just, for me, it was just so cool. They like I said, it's, you know, some people are like, oh man, animatronics, but it's like, they varied up so much that it was like really cool. So you had ones where, again, you would see it. Sometimes you'd see it and then you're just like, is it going to go off or not? Because it doesn't always. And we went through this one twice. You actually braved it twice. And so we got to see different ones. For one, it's cool. As soon as it started launching, I was like, oh, it's coming. And then it went really high up and above us. Yeah. And that was actually really cool. I was like, whoa.
We missed that the first time for sure.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't see that.
So this one, Widows was killer and definitely worth going to see, and we'll give you the creepy crawlies and awesome.
It is that, and honestly, between Eight Fingers 9 and Widows, like that, if you just do those two, depending on when you go, like it's almost worth price of admission. Those are really good. They're long, they're replayable in the sense that you'll see things on the second term. I think that you maybe won't see the first time because you're just experiencing it. And we should say too that we went on a Thursday, and our wait time. A Sunday. And again, it was, we were still in September when we went. I know everything changes in October, and we'll get to the logistics of, you know, should you not later, but we didn't have to wait more than 15 minutes for any one maze. And that's with these two new showcase mazes. Yeah. 15 minutes on both sides.
I was gonna say, I think we waited 5 minutes for them at the most. But that was
maybe both times, huh?
Yeah, it really wasn't. I mean, the second time for Eight Fingers 9, we walked right on,
which is crazy. It was fucking Knott's is so cool.
Yeah, it definitely. No matter what, the whole thing is like, if you can go to these events not on a Friday or Saturday, that's the play. Like that is when it's not as busy, and we get why people can't, because they got normal work schedules, school schedules, all that. But it's like, if you're willing to do that and lose some sleep, you know what I mean? It's you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, I try and tell people that have only been HHN and not to Knott. It's like, you wait 15 minutes and the mazes are 6 minutes long, and they're like, they can't fathom it. They just can't, because it's just so not what HHN is. But not all of them are super hits, right? Yep. So there were a couple that we, you know, felt that.
What? Well, can I talk about my next favorite?
Oh yeah,
is that what you mean?
That's what I mean. Yes.
I don't want to poop on things yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we won't poop on them. We'll just be a little disappointed. But anyways, my next favorite for me was a favorite for me last time, I think, as well, which was Mesmer.
Oh, yeah.
Mesmer is like my number 3, I would say. Because I think it's the same. I think you and I both really enjoyed these new ones. And then we had some ones we've been through before. But going back to Mesmer, I just really enjoyed it this time. I felt like I got to see more things maybe than last time. I felt like it was just as enjoyable. So Mesmer's like supposed to be you're going in and getting mesmerized. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So there is like a magician-y person, a hypnotist. That's what it is.
But like a big top, right? Like a carnival.
Yeah, but it comes with that. Exactly. So you still get these attractions, right? These people who are a little bit different and things like that. And it does have circusy vibes as well. But, you know, like one of the first people we see kind of, or at least early on-ish, which is really cool, is that it's like this chick who's playing basically a violin off of her arm, like her arm strings, basically. Like she's just got her arm cut open and she's using a bow across it. Yeah. And it's funny because the thing that overhead that's talking to you is all like, you know, she found that music comes from inside. You know what I mean? Something like that. Super cool. We talked about this last year, but man, they have a point where they have like these mirrors that were spinning around, and they got Chris, and I was so happy they got him.
Yeah, that's like towards the middle of the maze too. So I'm again, Mesmer is one of the ones that you and Dustin, if you go back and listen to our podcast last year about Knott, you guys really enjoyed Mesmer for what it was, for the creativity that it had. And I was like, nah, it definitely wasn't, but you are right. This one it felt like it was a new maze for me. Like I missed something last time. Maybe I was the third person in line or something.
You were. I was going to say, because I remember I went first last time, and it was hard to navigate, and there was so much going on. So
there is a lot going on.
Yeah. So this time I sent you first, and then you got to feel that full experience and the moment with all the mirrors where you're like, where do I go?
Yeah, it's like a tradition. It's like a mirror maze, but also then that, like what we're talking about, it's like a top with like spinning mirrors on it, and you just kind of have to. Again, what they do is a great job is using their space where you can go through different doors. They lead to the same area. There were several mazes that we went through that had decorated doors where you could go to either one.
Yeah, you could choose your path, kind of a thing.
Yeah, you'll end up in the same place for the most part, but yeah.
You might like miss something, like just another room, like for
not
briefly.
Even that, like a rock or something. You might walk by like, it's not a lot.
Well, I did notice in one of them that there was, like a little bit of a tunnel that had something going on that we saw. And then when we emerged into the next one, I could see where the other door had led. And I was like, oh, we picked the right way because you know what I mean? But for like Mesmer, I really like. So you liked it a lot this time?
Well, they did a lot of really cool things that I don't remember them doing the first time. And for people that like, it really plays with like the depth of what you're expecting. Because at one point, one of the things that they did last year that I really enjoyed was in room 13 was they made you feel like you were walking on a scaffolding. It was brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so there was something like this here where there was a rope that you had to walk across a tightrope walker, right?
Yeah.
And then it was over glass, but it seemed like it was just going down into like an abyss where it was, you know what I mean? I think that was really cool. That kind of everybody walked that tightrope. There wasn't one jackass who's like, let me fucking hop sketch across. And it's like, no, like everybody bought into the gag, which is really cool. Then the other one, a couple of them were too, where they turned the room kind of askew.
Yes.
I think that worked so well to the point where to me, it doesn't bother me, when it does that, but this one did. I actually had to grab the rail. Yeah.
Nice.
There was a grandfathery clock at the end of this tunnel.
Oh yeah. And it comes out at you. And we actually went through this tunnel when the clock was going backwards, and it looked like it was almost stretching. And I remember you were like, what the heck is going on?
It throws you off. It changes the perspective of what you're already your emotions are already high. Like it's not stress or whatever, but like, right. So then you change something it's a baseline for you. Then it's just all of a sudden, it's like, it goes from something being very small to something being giant, like just eschewing your platform, maybe a couple degrees.
Huge. I
thought that was really cool.
They play with that the whole time, because the whole thing is like you're getting mesmerized and it's all illusionist stuff, right?
Right.
So that's the fun thing about this maze, is that it is playing with all those illusions. And I love doing that. I love when we go through a space that like throws me off, makes me feel weird or unbalanced. And I felt that a ton in this maze and this haunt. I mean, with the spinning room, like you talk about, that gets me every time. So I always immediately grab the rail. I have had the experience of fully falling to the floor because I was like, I can't. Yeah, right. Hey, it is what it is. Now I know. As soon as I see those rooms, it's like, there's a railing. I'm going to touch it, even if I like the feel of this, Yeah.
What I liked about this too is that, again, that there were all face actors. The makeup was really good. Like all these people had like, they weren't like nutcracker makeup, but kind of like as a baseline for you to get a visual that it was kind of similar to that, where the cheeks were painted a bright color, their chin, kind of their eyes. It was very carny, but in the sense of visually speaking, like the nutcracker, but on an evil level. And I think most of everybody in this maze, I don't think anybody that I can think of wore a mask. So the actors were really, really working with what they had, and they had the chance to be free and flexible with what they said and interact and be silly and scary at the same time and pop out. And I think that was really cool. And Mesmer was definitely a can't miss, for me. Yeah. It was really good.
Agreed. I really, really like that one. And that one's kind of tucked away and hidden like it's towards the back. Yeah, you have to like purposely be going to look for it. It's not one that like if you're wandering, you'll stumble upon. But it's worth going to look for because it was really good.
Yeah.
And they have this big old giant skeletally looking, carcassy looking guy who is like the guy who's the illusionist or whatever. And that's always super impressive when they just have this giant thing looking at you and moving around.
And again, you're walking into like a big top. Like the suspension of disbelief immediately, it hits you. Yeah. I think that was really cool. That was super cool. Yeah, Mesmer was again. I remember not being impressed by it, but going through this last time, I don't know if it changed at all. I don't think it did. I think that was identical to last year, but man, it was good. It was so fucking good.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite after that one? Do you have I don't know if that's your third. Did you have a third favorite?
That's probably my third. I think now when we get into it, so we did a couple of mazes twice, like we mentioned. We did, I want to say, Bloodlines twice.
Bloodline 1842.
And I remember really liking it last year because it did some things, again, with mostly face character actors. But there was kind of an interactive story, or maybe not an interactive story, but an action story you're walking through.
Yeah.
So the first time I went through, I was really excited. I'm like, I can't wait to
this year because you had seen it last year.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
and you had mentioned the line change. We're just calling it the shift change. I think we walked right through a shift change. I think most of this maze, awful. Yeah, if you were only going to do a maze once and you got line changed, you would hate it. It would ruin your entire experience of that maze.
Yeah. And that's what happened with us for this one.
Absolutely.
We walked through and we were like, there just wasn't a lot doing, a lot happening at all. And it was kind of lame for us.
Super unfortunate. I left feeling very upset. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, you're like, why did I like that last year? What was it?
And when the way we did it, we should say we did 8 Fingers, 9 Widows, and then this, because they're in the same area.
That's a great point too, because that really let us down after that.
Yeah.
You get 2 bangers and then you go for one that you also thought was going to be excellent.
Yeah. And ended up just
and it let down.
And this was at the top of the night, and at the end of the night, as we were making our second pass through 8 Fingers, 9 Widows, let's hit Bloodlines again.
Yep.
And this one was much better. This one we had actors where they were supposed to be. The biggest scare I got happened in this maze.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was, and the reason I enjoyed this maze last year and then this year at the second go round was because if you've been to Knott, they harness people in. So like actors and characters.
There will be like stunty, flying people.
If you've never seen it, it blows your fucking mind.
It is the coolest thing.
Yeah. And this maze has like 3 of those instances.
Yes.
The idea is that you walk through you're walking into a battle between humans and vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of it is you see above you, which again, anytime you change the platform of where you're looking up, down, it does something to you. And in a couple of instances, there was a vampire that shot from darkness over us on like a harness, like it was flying with the strobe behind it. It was loud. It was so cool.
It was so cool.
Yeah. And you're walking through sewers and dungeons.
Yeah.
And there's fog and there's like the lasers that make it look like there's water. And it was just so cool. So the part I'm talking about where I got the biggest scare was we go through this dark area, and this might have been right after that, where you're chased in there, and as you can go one of 2 ways. And
I remember now.
Always go left. And that was my mistake.
You went
left.
Right.
No, I went left.
It's right.
It's left. This is why it would happen to you too.
No.
I turned left, and then
you went this way.
Left. That's left.
This is right. And then you got stopped and had to go this way.
I don't know.
So if you went through the door, this is the mistake. You always go left, but he went right.
So anyway, it pops up. And as I'm going that way, a giant like cloaked figure on stilts is walking at, and you can only see it because of like the light that's like, it's like absorbing like a black hole. You see the light around it. And
you can't tell what it is.
Giant fucking
it's
feature.
Just huge.
I remember screaming and then turning and running. And it didn't take that person to do anything but just be there.
Just walking towards you slightly.
And that's the great thing about Knott, the misdirection, right? There was no trigger involved. There was no yell. There was no scream, just something coming from the dark that you didn't expect.
And I love this. This is such a funny story because of this, the fact that the first time we went through, Chris also led it then. And he turned right. And we started going that way because there's nobody there. And so then you had to walk like, you know, it was like 6 feet-ish. And to then be like, then you see the end. It's like, it's just a dead end. You know what I mean? It was just this little alcove that was, about 10 feet out or something like that. So, you know, it took going into it a little bit for then Chris to be like, there's no way out of this area. And so people were following us into it.
Going the wrong
Chris
way.
had to like flip around and be like, I went the wrong way. And have the people behind us like turn and they start leading the way, kind of a thing.
And so it's funny. We talk about how we were kind of in the middle of a switch.
Yeah.
That's where that actor's hide was.
Yes.
So had there been somebody like there was supposed to be, it never would have happened.
Yeah. And lucky for Chris, he didn't remember that was the wrong way. So when he went in the second time, he did the exact same thing. It feels like that. They do that sometimes where they know how to like lead you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that it makes you want to turn that way. It feels like the right way to turn, but you were turning right into this giant thing. It is amazing.
It's so cool how, again, I believe that there are options to go a couple different ways that will lead you to the right path through a couple of these things. But yeah, this one was good. That scare was a real good scare for me.
That was super fun.
And then of course, did you have any memories about this one?
Yeah, I mean, the second time we went through, we had it was like you said, the people who were on harnesses and above us swinging around and stuff. And so there was like this one hallway we walked through where nobody had been there before, but we kind of could see something above us moving. And then sure enough, it dropped down like upside down, like a bat, hanging like a bat, like looking at us. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, in front of the way we were walking, like as we're walking towards it, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. And again, they do a lot of these things where stuff is up above you, which is really unsettling and cool too. You know what I mean? And it makes it bigger. It makes it feel bigger. So yeah, I really like that. And that wasn't there the first time either. So there was like these little things that it's just like, that wasn't there. We definitely just had more actors overall. Like I remember even there's this really cool room you walk into where again, there's 2 people on harnesses, but one's on either side of you in this kind of long hall, but it's big. You walk in and it looks almost cathedral-like or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And there's, you know, a guy who's standing up on a platform, but he's one of your people because he's one of the humans or whatever. Right. And he's telling you, we got to go, you know, we got to keep moving. And he smashes down on like the head of like one of the bad guys, like a dead vampire, and it sprays you if you're the one who gets smashed like right there. I saw it coming. I don't know if I just had flashbacks to last time or what, but when we went through the first time, that dude was there, and when I could see it, it's like he was going to hit it right when I was going, and so I turned so it hit my like arm and back.
Oh, okay.
But the second time it hit you, I think. It got you pretty good.
I had no idea that.
But they had more people in that room the second time too, where it was more distracting. So it's like, I think I would have got hit with it because there was more to look at. You know, there was like, what is happening in here? There's another battle going on the ground and above us. They're fighting, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. The second time around was, and again, that's the shitty part about it. Like, if you don't have the opportunity, or like you're tired, fuck it, I don't want to go to this maze again because it sucks. Like, if you just left with the first experience that we had, it'd have been bad, man. Like, yeah,
we would have felt this was irredeemable, kind of a maze, but instead we went through it again, and then it's probably our 4th favorite.
Yeah, definitely my 4th favorite.
Yeah, because so it's wild how that can happen. And I do think that's something really good to note for everybody. If you ever hear someone say, I love this maze, and then you go through and it's not good, it's like, it's not always, it's because it's live performance. Like that's the coolest thing about all these experiences. It's what I love about theater and live performance is that it's like, it's different for everybody. It's going to be different. Unless you're with people at the same moment. And even then it can be different depending on where you are in line. Are you the one getting the pop scares? Are you missing all of them? You know what I mean? Like all of that is like determining factors. And to me, that's kind of like a cool, fun thing about it, that it's not just like, you know, all witnessing the same thing and feeling the same. Like if you watch a movie, for instance, it's more than a movie, you know what I mean? Right. But yeah, it is good to point that out, because even as we go into ones that are now maybe not as well liked on our list, it doesn't mean that they weren't great for somebody else. I do want to just say that.
Yeah.
You know, and we saw these last years, and some of these were our favorite last year. Do we want to bring up one that really was our favorite last year?
Yeah, Cinema Slasher.
Cinema Slasher. I think I think that was our number one.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on last year. We were in making our movie. It was about to come out. We had a release date, so we were excited about the idea of going through a haunted house. It's based around horror movies because you know we love the cliches. We love there was so much fun. There was a campground. There was a boat. There was
you go into different theaters that are playing different horror movies, and then you walk through the screen and you are in that movie is like the concept.
Very Final Girl. Was it? I just meant.
Oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, totally. And
it was so cool.
So way cool. Love the concept. Was fantastically executed last year for us. And this one to me, I would say I still enjoyed it, but it was hurt by some of the technical elements for this. The technical elements weren't as good as they were last year, mainly fog.
I know, which is crazy to say, right? Because that's their tagline.
Yeah, it can affect so much. And I don't know what was going on with their machines this time. They need to refill that liquid. I don't know what. You know what I mean? Did we just hit it when like a big wind had come through? I'm not sure. But, you know, did we need to be longer into the night? Not really sure. But there were they set up a couple of rooms that specifically have either the laser things going on so you can't see what's below it, or they fill it with fog and it's dark. That last year worked excellently. And then this year it didn't feel the same because it didn't work. Yeah,
the illusions that work so well, and especially I can think of right now, is there's actually a boat, and it's just like it sounds. There's a boat on a dock in this haunted house, which is like, that's mind blowing. This is so cool. Yeah. There's, you know, it's lit with some fog and some blue lights underneath it to make it look at water and waves.
Yes.
And it was so cool. This year, none of that. The boat was still there, but no fog. So you could see the bottom of you could see the floor. Like the gag was up.
The gag was up because generally they use the lasers and the fog. And so I remember you could look over the sides because you're walking along the dock and it's like, it would look like water below. It looks like crazy fog and then some water. Right. And the illusion works so well. Like you feel like you get on this boat and you are in the water. I remember that being so cool.
You mentioned the dock. You're so right. I forgot about that. Like you are completely immersed in this small vignette of this horror story. Yeah. And man, you are right.
Yeah, it was so cool. We were so impressed last year. I mean, to the point, like it's one of those cool rooms they do too, where again, you're kind of walking around the room. You don't necessarily exit, or if you do, you come right back into the room, but on the other side of it. Yeah. Which is always a fun thing that they do. And both times that we were in this room, we were like looking over the edge because we were just like, this looks so cool. Like it just felt so immersive.
Last year.
Right. This year, there was not enough fog.
There wasn't any fog.
And it felt cheap and it felt
someone fucked up.
Someone
fucked up.
Yeah, it was very upsetting.
Yeah.
And there's another gag that they do that I really liked last year, where you go into another room and it's pretty dark and it's a square again, where you have to walk around this other square that's kind of in the center, built like a boxer ring kind of a thing, like really high up though. You have to circle around it and you can't really see a lot that's going on. And so what was great about it was that people who were on the ground floor with you, like scare actors, could, you know, just get close to you or put their hand in front of your face or something, and it would scare you because you're like, I can't see. And then they have the person who's in the boxer ring goes off and he's got this giant chainsaw, like giant, and he juts it out towards you, like where you're walking,
like anime style chainsaw.
Yes. And it is so sick. Like he looks like a giant dude himself and he's doing this thing. It looks terrifying.
It's like a meat packer, I think, was like the shtick.
You're right. I think we were going into like the slaughtery house kind of a idea. And so it feels like it, just like they say, it feels like a horror movie. It feels like that moment that the killer jumps out and it's all fog, just barely lit. And he's like doing the chainsaws coming at you and it's terrifying. And this year, again, no fog in the room, or at least very little.
Yeah.
And so I could see the actors that were hanging out and they were just kind of hanging out. You know, they would try to do their usual scare things, but it just wasn't working. And you could see the chainsaw guy the whole time.
Yeah.
And when he did his thing, it didn't quite trigger because, again, like light was a big part of it. And if you don't have fog, then that light's not really catching as much. It's not showing up the way it did in the past, at least.
I will say, too, that I felt the actors were very lackluster in this one. There were a couple ones who really went for it, like the one that the counselors, air quote, they were being like stalked.
There was a couple of people in the movie theater too. I would shout out because man, there was one point where one dude was like straight up ran past me as I like entered and stuff. Like
I don't know,
like ran at me basically from the movie theater, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, I felt that the actors kind of weren't at their greatest. And again, former scare actor, I get it. It's rough, it's tiresome, and it's long maze, and it smelled bad in there too. Like I'm sure they want because you walk through like the lobby and it's all rotted and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
There was that smell there. So I wonder if they got tired of it. But I felt like most of the actors, for me in this case, really, I don't know if they mailed it in or what, but that coupled with the technical disappointment. What's worse is we know what this maze could be.
Yeah.
Right into what it was. It was my favorite last year by a fucking long shot.
It was still so cool. The first one you walk through is all Halloween movie-ish. You know what I mean? And that is our shtick. It's like, you know what I mean? You walk through and there's just like all these pumpkins and all these cool.
It's a sorority slaughter.
Yeah, that's what it was. Sorority slaughter, but it was definitely taking place on Halloween.
It was so cool.
It was great. Like so as we were first going in, it felt like we were all set up for it. It's just as it went on, it kind of started disappointing.
It's just a great idea for a maze. I think it's so cool for what they want to do. It was great what they did last year. Like you said, it was traditional horror tropes.
Right.
Man, it was so that's for me what made it so much worse, to know that it could be so good.
Totally.
And for this to be just kind of ended up like, when we left, I'm like, fuck, that was bad.
I know.
So,
because I feel like otherwise I would really recommend it to people. But honestly, it really came down to just the technical fog, the lack of fog.
That's true too.
Honestly, for me, that's it. Like I would even excuse like the, actors maybe not being in it as much, because it wouldn't matter if it feels atmospheric enough and 100%. Cool.
I mean, the same thing for Widows, because Widows' atmosphere is so good. It doesn't matter what the actors did. For me, they were going to be scary no matter what.
Yeah.
Like your senses are already at like level 100 at this point.
Right.
So that was pretty disappointing.
Another one that we did last year would be the Grimoire.
Grimoire, yeah.
Yeah, which is all about, an ancient relic of a book.
Hey, we like books that are relics and are cursed.
I was going to say that seems right up Chris's alley as well. And evil creatures released from it. Like clearly it's funny. It kind of goes campgroundy again, where it's, some kids are reading this book.
Evil Deadish in some ways.
Yeah.
It's Friday 13th.
And you seem like you kind of jump into the book and jump out, and it's through time. Like you jump backwards in time, and you kind of get to see, for me at least, the storyline is like what evil this book has unleashed. You know what I mean? It's cool. You go through like war time and stuff.
But also black and white. So
black and white,
it's like the vision, and which is weird because if you were there, it wouldn't be black and white, but like you're looking at it through like a television screen, like you, the viewer, right? Because talk about World War I, you go through like this book has infected people, and then the trenches is cool, right?
Yeah,
like,
you're in the trenches of like a war, and they have fire, the bullets going off and stuff.
Yeah, very cool set design, I thought. And then of course you get to like, I think it's the 50s when his mom is making dinner, which is like is like a person or something like that. Again, in black and white. Right?
Yeah,
like
everybody's painted black and white. They're in black and white.
Yeah. Really cool stretch on what they were trying to do with that, at least.
And then you kept jumping back and forth between like seeing the people you're camping with again, where they would say things like, where'd you go? You disappeared and you're back. Or they'd be like, something's coming and and get attacked. And
they were going for it. The counselors were on it when it came to that stuff. I'll say that. They
were telling their story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this one this was one of my favorites, I think, last year as well. And it didn't hit as hard this year.
Yeah.
It didn't hit as hard for me this year.
I think the most exciting part of this maze was really when we saw this raccoon when we were waiting in line. And granted, it is always exciting to see a raccoon. I think I've only seen 3 in my entire life. But when we were in the queue line where like the rapids were, where they've got like this waterfall, and like this raccoon was he gonna take a pumpkin, do you think?
He was, literally, like it's the coolest area that they have you in line. There's like water there, and across the way they have all these pumpkins up on the hill, and it's so cool and atmospheric. And this raccoon's all hanging out with the pumpkins. He's like wandering around, and I was like, I think he's gonna take a pumpkin.
Yeah, he did.
He's gonna take a pumpkin. It was so cute.
He might have. Like we left as he was kind of making his.
The line was moving. Yeah, we were trying to stay there and watch him, but the line was moving.
Yeah, but that was probably the most exciting part of that maze. And we know we're disrespect to the actors or the set design, but this is one of those that didn't feel any different for me than it did last year. You know,
and I think that's what it was for me too, because I was really down for, I liked the story it was telling. And I liked that idea of like, oh, evil and coming throughout time. And when has this book shown up and done these things? And I thought that was really cool. And there was always these messages along the way that you're kind of reading that are creepy and scary, or, talking about brothers fighting brothers, which was the war. And then I think it was something about, people are starving, but we're like, I think it felt like very Thanksgiving, make fun of for like the 50s or something like that.
Maybe that's the one where they're eating people. I don't know.
Exactly. That kind of a thing. So anyways, it was like, I think I really enjoyed that last year, and this year I didn't find anything new about it. And yeah, it didn't have enough. I don't know if I ever got scared in this maze. I'll say that too. Like all of them, no matter what, there's somebody usually who's going to pop out and get me. It doesn't have to be the giantess scare, but there's just something that's going to be like, oh, okay, cool. That was cool. And I don't recall this one doing that to me at all.
No, I don't think there was anything like that. There was something at the end where you saw on the tail end of it though. The trigger or whatever, the event didn't get us.
Chris was trying to bail. He was out.
I wasn't excited about it.
Yeah.
Like, I felt myself like, let's just get through this and move on.
So we got to the end, and there's a long hall, and he just went to the edge, like to the end. But there was, if you turn to the right as you were walking out the long hall, there was a skeleton there with the book, and the book was actively getting like things written on it with this dead person holding it, kind of thing. But like the letters were appearing or whatever. And these two girls that were behind me were really on it and looking and stuff. And so I was trying to look, but then I kind of did feel the pressure of like, I got to keep moving.
The pressure.
Yeah. And so as I was moving away, whatever the message was like finished, and there was like a jump scare there or something. And so I was a little sad because I was like, dang.
You said the book kind of moved too, right? Like it was...
the words were getting written on it.
The words were
like
getting written
actively as you watched it, it was like magically appearing, like the words on it.
I mean, that'd have been cool, but yeah.
It was really cool. And it was, saying it the whole time, it's something about, if you touch this book or read this book or do something, you're cursed, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? And
I see.
There was something with that at the end too, about the fact that we've seen so much or something. I can't remember exactly what it was saying, but anywho. So it might have been a case of just missing some things, but, overall a really cool concept. If you haven't done it, I still think it's really worth going to do that maze.
Yeah.
Because I did like, especially if you're in it for story and cool stuff and seeing the effects, like I'm down for that.
Because it is a cool story. Like it's exactly the same story that it was last year. And for me, that was just, I don't know. And you nailed it. It wasn't specifically scary. It kind of felt like a walk through haunt in terms of, I don't think I got scared once during that thing.
No, that's what I said too. Yeah. Right? I don't think,
Or like, there's not a point. And I don't even think there's a point that really jumps out at me. Like that's a show stopping moment. Like there's at least in every maze that we do, even with Cinema Slasher and its technical difficulties, the boat is, for me, is a show stopping moment. Like that just changes the dynamic, right? Widows, everything in there, 8 Fingers 9, the show Bloodlines and people are flying across the top.
Sure.
But for Grimoire, I can't think of one.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
I'm with you.
So...
I'm with you.
Didn't love it, didn't hate it. If you haven't gone, definitely go. This is the opinion of two very biased people that have gone almost 3 years in a row now since COVID brought it back. So,
and we will say that it's like I think we've always said one of the knocks against Knotts.
Oh my goodness,
is that like they have 2 new mazes this year. But the rest of them are basically recycled. Like they've been the same maze. Yeah. So there's always that where, it's if you go every year, yes, there can be your favorites. And if you are down to continue to go through the same thing and see your favorites, then it's fun. And that's what we kind of were looking forward to this year. But otherwise, there's actually a moment we've been like, you can probably skip and go every other year or something and at least get a few more new mazes.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we only have 4 mazes left. 2 of them we did. 2 of them we didn't do.
Yeah. I think that let's talk about the 2 that we didn't do, just because we coming off of that statement that you just said, where we've done Calico and this one.
Yeah, this is the Origins, the Curse of Calico.
Yeah, which they're sunsetting this one. I think they're sunsetting it this year. So if you haven't had a chance to go. But we've gone to this one, like if we've gone 4 years in a row, we've gone to this maze 4 years out of 4 years minus this one. So
this was another one where the very first year we went to it, it was
mind blowing,
100%. And it's kind of the same. It's got cool flying effects and stuff like that.
Witchy stuff,
witchy
right.
stuff.
In the old West type of thing.
So cool.
Yeah.
Very witch trial-y, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the story is really cool and the effects in it is really cool. The only thing that happened to us is that since we've been going every year, eventually we got kind of burned on it where it was the same thing. There was like, I've been at least 2 years of this time that we would go and we missed some really big effects that we knew existed.
Yeah.
And we were pretty bummed about it.
If you miss the effects, it changes almost everything in the maze, which is weird to say because it's one specific thing. And if you've never done it and it's not there, you probably won't miss it. But if you've done it and you see it, you'll never forget it.
100%.
So like, yeah,
it's the show-stopping moment, but then it's gone.
Yeah.
And you're just like, but this was all I was looking forward to.
Right. It's such a cool thing and it builds that character so well. And it's just like, it changes the dynamic of the maze and where you're looking. So yeah, we actually, we were more than okay with sitting this one out. And by the way, too, of all the wait times, this is probably one of the ones with the longer wait times.
Yeah. Both times we were in this area, it was at 30 minutes for us, which again, we didn't wait in a line that was over 15 minutes.
Which is wild.
Which was awesome. Yeah. We did see a couple of lines get to 30 minutes. The other one that we didn't do was also at 30 minutes when we were in that area.
Right.
So we kind of were like, and if we were on the fence about it, we had seen it too. And that would be room 13.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of it last year. I don't think anybody was. Nobody really talked about it last year when we did our
I love the Roaring 20s idea and stuff. And I really was like excited for that element. But then the story for me wasn't great. Some green goop that does some stuff.
And it felt very linear. It felt just like straight up haunted house. And I think that, yeah, and of course, this is after we've done Widows and Eight Fingers 9. And you're right, the Roaring 20s, they call it the Goring 20s, is their scare zone there. The queue line is right in front of Elvira's Shindig, and they have a really cool like swing dance set that we had a chance to catch some of that. It was so cool.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Again, Knott with like the atmosphere. 2 of their scare zones this year have live musicians there. One of them were like in the middle of a set when we walked by, but it was still really cool. Or they weren't like, they were in the middle of a break, I should say, they were between sets. That's what I was looking for. But this other one, when we were in the room 13 area, they were actively playing and they have their scare actors out there dancing and stuff and interacting with you. Just so fun. It's Prohibition era. So it's like we were getting drinks in that area.
Yeah.
And we had 2 different scare actors come up and make comments about it, whether it was like, get me a drink and he's ridiculously drunk or something, or you know what I mean? So just a lot of fun in that area.
Face makeup too. The actors were allowed to be free and be creative. I thought that was really cool. It was great. The food is there. It's a great spot. Just like we got post up, have a beer, get a piece of pizza, watch the event, get a front row to the show. And the way it's spaced out. And like you said, you know, the way they do it with the environment, you just kind of sit and watch it.
Yeah.
You just feel like you're never missing anything. I think that's really cool that they do that.
Agreed. Yeah. So those are the 2 we missed. I guess the next one I would cover is the Chilling Chambers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is, to me, yeah, I think we're gonna have the same opinion on this one. I didn't love it. I know that they said last year it was new, and then it's more like a tribute to all the things that came to Knott's before, like a sentimental graveyard. They've got gravestones of all their previous haunts.
Celebrating 50 years kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I guess the 10 Chilling Chambers was an inaugural maze that they had. And it began in 1977. So yeah, this was just, they brought it back to kind of like be like, oh, okay, cool, you know, and it has a lot of different themed rooms in it.
Yeah.
Which is probably the coolest part about it, is that it's like you will get a little bit of everything in this. But with that, there's not necessarily a linear story in any sort of sense.
A lot of something, but not a lot of good things, I think.
Yeah, it's just bits and pieces of stuff. So there's not necessarily a build. You're quickly on to the next kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a vignette to some other thing out. And I felt like there were a lot of scare actors that were missing in this maze.
We might have missed them too. I would say that too. It felt a little bit light on the scare actors. I think we've always said that this maze feels like if you have gone to Knott's for a very long time, you'd probably like super dig it.
Yeah.
You know, because there's little things we've caught on to. They do this fun thing with the graveyard at the end where they have put the gravestones have the names of some of the mazes that they have, sunset as you call it.
Yeah.
And so that's always like a fun moment where you can point out the ones you really love. Like Chris is the depths that he really loved.
Love the depths.
It's like
dark entities.
Yeah. Like that was a fun one to like this year be like, oh my God, they did stop it. And there it is. It made the graveyard, you know? And there was one moment in this that I think for me, I was like, it was really funny and like worth it. And
show stopping.
Yeah, I would say it was show stopping. It's not a scary moment, but I really just liked it. It was just funny. But it's kind of near all the clowny stuff, I think. There's one point you walk through and you end up walking through kind of like an animal's den sort of thing. And there's these big elephant butts that are facing inwards at you as you're going through this hall. And they fart and their tail comes up and little air comes out. And you were walking, there's manure everywhere and stuff.
Fake manure.
And the ground, they've made it like cushioned and soft. So when you walk, you feel like you're possibly walking in manure. Like it's got that squish feel to it. And so for me, that was like the show-stopping moment where I walked through there and it wasn't scary whatsoever. But it was memorable, like to the end. I was like, that's actually hilarious and funny and made you feel uncomfortable in the sense of like, please don't fart on me.
Definitely cool. Yeah. I actually didn't like this maze at all. I think that the part you're talking about is what made it for me.
Right.
We were going through, like you said, a bunch of vignettes you're walking through. At one point, some producers like, oh, that was part of a great maze, or some, but he's been going there forever. Like, oh, that was part of my favorite maze of all time. And it's just a small vignette of it. And so there's really nothing to get built up. It just, like snapshots. It's not a big story. It took the place of my favorite maze of all time, which is the Pumpkin Eater one.
Pumpkin Eater.
Yes. That will always be my favorite maze at Knott's.
And it's located in the same spot.
Yeah, they took my Pumpkin Eater maze out and they put this one in. So I've always like.
Is it still your favorite now that we've had these other ones?
But these don't take its place. I think the Bayou one will always be my favorite. Okay. Yeah, because the way they use the fog and they made it dress it up like you're on the water, or you're like on a path. Yeah, it was dope.
Swampy.
An evil Pirates of the Caribbean in the beginning.
Whoa.
I know. And then the last maze, I think, was one that we could have easily missed. They're also sunsetting this one.
We weren't planning to go to it,
but there was like a 0-minute wait.
Yeah, it was in the area we were in. And we thought, you know what? They're getting rid of it anyways. And it's walking right onto it. Yeah. Might as well. And that would be Waxworks.
Waxworks. I don't get why people like this maze. I think that you've never liked it. So you tell me, why don't you like it? Like, I know why.
I get why people could like this maze. I do think it's very much reflective of the movie, like the Paris Hilton Wax Museum one. What is it called?
House of Wax.
House of Wax.
Actually, that's a decent movie, by the way.
If you say so. It's not terrible. Anywho. It did make me uncomfortable. I'll say that. That it's got that vibe to it. It's very much they are taking people and, putting humans in wax.
It's House of Wax, the movie.
It's House of Wax, the movie. But there are some really cool things that they do that I saw this time that I was like, you know what? The people who like these parts are kind of cool. And like one of them, the one that stood out to me this time is that there's like a lady, I think, and she's just got so many arms like coming off of her like shoulder and the side of her body and stuff. And she's basically turned into a candelabra. Like they put candles on her and stuff. And as you walk by, there's a little phrase that says something about, we wanted to like light her up or something like that. I don't remember, you know what I mean? Something spooky. But that was pretty cool because it looked really morbid. Like the whole idea throughout, you see it several times like written on the wall where it's like, I'm going to make them in my image, or I'm going to make you in my image or whatever, or something like that. Yeah. Like, so it's playing God, but with like wax basically and people. And then there's another part where you do see this really grotesque figure that's just tons and tons of heads and stuff built up on each other. And the figure is an animatronic and it moves and it is actually really creepy.
Do you remember Last of Us 2, The Rat King? Maybe it's a stretch for you. It was similar to that.
It does feel similar to that. And it was lit really well this time and really creepy.
Yeah.
So those were my 2 moments that I was like, okay, people like this maze like this. I think the reason we don't like it, and I'm sure I'll speak for just me, but is because like we see a lot of fake body parts and we see a lot of fake, torsos, whatever. Like we've been to haunted houses and we know the gag of like, here's a fake body setup that has its intestines ripped out, but it just sits there. It's not animatronic. It's not going to move. Right. It's just there. It's kind of something that me and Chris are used to seeing and doesn't really impress us very much.
Desensitized to that type of thing very much. So yeah.
And that's what this thing is full of. It's full of, because they're supposed to be dead people in wax, or maybe their eyes are moving, which is always a cool thing, an effect if they're doing that. But most of the time it's these people that are just like, it's a bunch of grotesque stuff with like wax over it, but it's just there because that's the point, is like they're dead and they're these figures now. So to me, it doesn't lend itself to a lot of scares, and it is very like, just look at these cool effects.
Yeah, it's like a walkthrough. It's like a museum in some ways.
Yeah, it's very museum-y. And so that's always what's upset me about it, is that I'm just like, it doesn't impress me as much. And there's not a lot I can get out of it. You know what I mean? So we've gone through this maze a couple of times in the past years, probably because it usually isn't crazy busy.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever liked it. This was probably the most I got out of it, was actually this time. And I think it was because I was being like, I don't want to hate on this maze anymore. It's the last year. We're going through it.
Don't bury it. It's already being buried.
Yeah, exactly. It's already going to be gone. Let me just make sure I've seen everything I could in this maze and make a full opinion of it. But no matter what, even at that rate, it was still, like a 4 out of 10 or something for me. I think it was still
way low. The scare actors were almost non-existent. There was maybe like 3 or 4 of them in there. It's a long maze, just like all of them. It's a walk-through haunt, but that's where I get upset, because Knott's has, obviously, it's the same fucking maze, so they have the ability to, how do we change it up? How do we make it better? Great example is Reign of Terror. Reign of Terror is a walk-through haunted house, right? They don't do any of the other stuff we're talking about. It's very similar to this, but they make it work. They change it. They make it better. They make it good. They don't change a lot. They change some, although I hear they've changed a lot this year. There's a forest aspect to it. I know, imagine that. So the fact, I just think it's lazy. It's lazy creativeness, which kind of sucks, because as much as compliments I give to Knott about the 2 new ones, they don't do new ones all the time. No. Like they might do 1 a year, and they'll just recycle the other ones. So really,
it's like 2 a year. It's like
and a lot of times like autopilot, where I will give it to Universal, where most of the mazes, sans a Halloween or Texas Chainsaw, are new.
And maybe that's part of it. We always hate on Halloween Horror Nights when they recycle a similar IP but have like redressed it. But there is that. It's like Knott's isn't really trying to do that. They'll just tell you it's the same thing. We're bringing it back.
Yeah.
And they will retire mazes and then bring them back too. Like they'll be like, we haven't had this one for a while, so we're going to bring it back. But again, as we've never seen it before, you're kind of like,
true. And there's some enthusiasm too, I'd imagine. I'm sure it's not the same person. How do we dress it up a little bit?
That one probably is dressed up. I would agree.
I didn't like Waxworks at all. I thought, to me, it was boring. The sound didn't feel balanced. There was a lot to look at. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, you're just walking through it.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't know. So
it's never been our favorite. Wasn't our favorite again.
Yeah.
So there you have it. They have some really long scare zones, which are just so cool. Their people are always walking around and they straight up talk to you all the time, which is so awesome. Halloween Horror Nights does not have the people talk to you ever, really.
And their scare zones are so much smaller now.
And they're tiny. Yeah. So it's not that. It's almost insane how much they put up at this place. But super successful. They have a lot of their rides are still open during this time.
Yeah.
We go generally for the haunts because that's what we're into. But we've gone to Knott's Scary Farm and done some of the rides. They have a log ride that I love to do every year.
It's got a Halloween overlay, which is fucking awesome too.
It's so cool. But Kristen let me do it this year.
No, we're not going to do it. It was getting cool. Yeah.
You do have to brave the wetness, but it is really fun. Like they do that. They have like Ghost Rider, which like is actually really super scary. It's the biggest wood Or the longest wood
steel coaster. I thought it was steel coaster or wood coaster.
I thought it's a wood coaster.
Maybe it's a wood coaster then.
But in the US or something like that. So I remember that's how I convinced everybody to ride it in the past was I was like, it's a wood coaster, guys. It's not that bad. And it's freaking terrifying.
The people that were behind us walking, because in the same direction as Eight Fingers, Nine Widows is the line for
Ghost
Rider. And they're like, oh, I love it, but I'm all bruised up afterwards because it is brutal.
It's brutal. I think it might be the fastest wood coaster. That might be what it is, but it's pretty good.
It's got some distinction of being the best.
It's something of a wood coaster, but either way, it's great. There's a lot to do that we don't always do. There's like shows and stuff. Clearly,
yeah. Their hanging show is a big fucking draw. We walked past it. There's aerialists. Mm-hmm. Like you could really make a night out of it. You know, you could get food. You can hit a couple of mazes. You could watch the show. Like there's a lot to do at Knott. So I don't
think you can do it all in one night.
No, if you're gonna the shows is specifically, you can't do that. And then some of the performances, Elvira is there. Obviously, the Goring 20s have their event. I don't think you could do it all because they're only open, I think, on the longest days till I think 1 or 2 a.m. till maybe 1 a.m. actually.
Okay.
And they close at midnight on weekdays. I don't know.
Yeah, we closed the night we went on Sunday. I think it was midnight. It was closing because we left around like 10:30, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was getting close to 11.
Then the other nights are 1 a.m. That makes sense. So,
something like that. There's a big
website.
Check the website. There's a big bag policy. You cannot bring bags into this thing unless they are super tiny clutches or clear bags of a certain thing. So that's a good heads up because last year I almost brought a bag in and luckily someone stopped me near the parking lot.
And funny enough, you can actually buy alcohol, walk around with it. You can't do that in HHN, I don't think, which is nice.
Oh, you can.
You can?
Yeah, they sell drinks too.
Yeah, but you can't walk around with them.
Yeah, you can.
No, I don't think you can. Well, I don't know actually.
You can.
Oh, well, anyway. So
you can't go into any mazes with them, of course. That's like everyone's rule. You can't. You can bring in a sealed water bottle, like a sealed drink. You know what I mean? To the mazes.
They don't want you all spilling on fucking set design and actors.
I mean, it makes sense. You jump. You get jumped. So it's like.
Absolutely.
Anyhow. So what do you think?
So there's a couple thoughts I have. The biggest thing for me is that bang for your buck. Because like we just said, there's a lot to do at Knott Scary Farm. A lot to do. In fact, I don't think that, like you said, I don't think you could do it all in one night if you tried to. I think bang for your buck, Knott's is untouchable. I think that the two new mazes are worth the price of admission alone if you just do those, right? So that's big. I know. I thought so too. I'm like, man, but we've already gone, and we're going to do a review later on HHN, but we've already gone to HHN. So I have we haven't done all the mazes yet. We decided to get a pass this year. And so we are going this couple times before we decide to do our review. Our final review. But yes, we have technically gone once and done a few. I can kind of, in my comparison, it would be towards that because I think Knott's and like we talked about in our precap, Knott's and Universal are pretty, similar in terms of what they're offering. Except I think
they're both theme parks. I think
Knott's offers so much more for the value. It's cheaper. There's I don't know if there's more stuff to do, but it feels like in terms of like events. Yeah. Because, Knott's has Elvira, Universal's got Chucky, Universal's got Terror Tram. I feel like there's more to do at Knott's. There's definitely more mazes. I mean, just the amount of mazes we talked about. What is it, like 9 or something crazy? I can't remember. I think Universal's capped at 6 this year too. It must be like 7 or something like that. It feels like there are 10 mazes at Knott's. 10 mazes? 10. Yeah. 10 mazes, guys. So it's like, that's huge alone. There are 10 mazes for you to choose from. They are all long, so long. So even if you're waiting in a line for a while, you don't feel like you wasted your time. Yeah. Even if you didn't enjoy the maze much, like you didn't enjoy like the Grimoire, let's say, right? So it's like when you got through it, you still didn't feel like you wasted your time waiting in line. Exactly. Because you're like, you still got an experience, even if it wasn't the best. You know what I mean? Well, it's like the Halloween Horror Nights ones can feel really short sometimes. I don't think you can beat Halloween Horror Nights when it comes to their production value in their mazes. Yeah. And they kill the scare. I gotta say that.
Halloween Horror Nights is probably the scariest event you can go to, like without going into extreme kind of haunts and stuff. It to me will have the most scares. I will drop the most at Halloween Horror Nights. They almost always get me to at least duck down real quick kind of thing, which I don't necessarily get at Knott's. I get jump scares and I do get spooked, and it is great. I really like that they vary up their scares. Their scares are different every time, and sometimes even just creepy is really nice. But those are kind of my notes for it, is that it's like there are some things you can get out of each one. But I'm with you that I think bang for your buck, like 10 mazes and like, I think it's like 4 scare zones or something, but they're huge.
Yeah. 2 shows. Elvira.
They do live, like I said, we just live music around those scare zones just to like put you in the mood. Like they're doing those things that I'd say like are very almost Disney-like, but we're doing it on a scarier level. This is a scary thing. You know, it's funny. They even sell necklaces now that are the like no boo necklaces, which
don't scare me.
It's only for scare zones. If you go through a maze, you're on your own.
Right.
But otherwise the purpose is supposed to be that they don't pick on you when you're just walking around the park. If you're just there for rides or something else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just so cool. There's so much to do. There's a bunch of like, they do have a lot of little games out there for you to play.
Like carnival games and shit.
Carnival games.
Yeah.
Like it's just, there's something for everybody and it's super fun. And I'm with you. It's just, if you want to feel those vibes and you don't need to have, the craziest, I'm so scared kind of moments. Knott's is fantastic. And if you haven't done it, you have to do it.
Oh yeah. If you haven't done it, you definitely have to go. And when you see the cost, it's like shocking how much cheaper it is in Knott's or something. Sorry, Universal. The other part you said about the mazes, I agree with you about production value in the mazes in most cases, but I felt like 8 Fingers 9 and Widows, if you were to move those to Universal, I think those 2 would fit in just fine. I think people would be like, man, those mazes are really long. But I think those would absolutely shine at Universal. I really do. In fact, if they were to be at Universal Orlando, because they have, for those that don't know, I think Orlando works with more original IPs. Those would like fit right in. Because of the set design, maybe not so much the scares. I figure you're right on the triggers.
If they had more triggers,
that would be it.
That would be it. Literally, if they just threw in a few more triggers, and maybe that's part of it, they just don't want to or whatever it is. But like if they did that, I'm with you. It'd be like a hands down thing. I mean, I think the only thing I noticed right away, production value wise, is that they're not necessarily great at covering the tops.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. So what do you mean by that?
So
for people that don't know.
Yeah, they have flats up, to create these walls, to create the actual maze part you're walking through and everything. Usually if you're looking straight ahead and looking at everything, your peripheral vision is just not like going to catch what's above you. You know what I mean? And like I've said, one of the things I think Knott's is great at that Halloween Horror Nights doesn't do is that they will have rooms that open up and are really tall, and they have things above you that you have to see. You'll have to go underneath things. Like it makes it feel huge. And those are the moments that I'm like, yes, production value here is killing it kind of thing. But on other areas where they don't have that, it'll just kind of be open. They won't have closed off the roof. So you can kind of see how it's like a bigger room that you're in, or it's just outside. We're giving you the appearance that we're inside, like of a bedroom or something, but there's no tops to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The illusion kind of fades, right?
Yes, it can. It's that whole thing. Like, and of course you're going in to be like, to give into the illusion, but at the same time, for me, you don't usually see that at all at Halloween Horror Nights.
Never, unless they want you to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They almost, unless they're purposely putting you in a foresty thing and go ahead and look at the sky. It'll like just add to this effect.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're right. They don't do that.
And that adds so much now that I think about it too, right? Like it kills the balance because they're probably working with like Duvetine because, and it also, it holds the fog and haze in.
Yes.
So it does a lot. It makes the room darker because there is no light spill coming into the room from anywhere.
Very controlled, I would say.
And then you've also got your fog that can't dissipate as fast because it has to work through the crevices as opposed to an open roof.
Yep.
And that was something I noticed too when we were going through. I think we even talked about it during a maze. We're horrible about that. We start picking apart a maze immediately as soon as you go into it. But for the good.
Yeah.
Okay, this is great. Because
we will also point out really cute things and cool things and be like, look at that. time, we'll just want to stand in that room and stare at it until people have scared us out.
Yeah, right. Like, keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
Keep it fucking moving.
We've been told to keep it moving a lot in mazes.
Yes, many, many times. I do think though, if you were of, that's why I think that the price of admission is kind of covered if you go to Widows and to Eight Fingers 9, because I really think that if you were to take those and put them into Universal, they would fit in. Of course, you'd have to modify it for triggers. Give it the Universal color, paint. Sure. In terms of like, the
masks and things like that, right? Would be a little bit more high quality, probably, like you mentioned.
And that's why I think that those two especially the Widow's one, there would be a spider mask for that. But you're right. The big knock I have against Knox is the masks aren't great, and I think that when they come off, it seems to me like they have their favorites. Right. They're like, hey, we're gonna make this maze kill it this year. And
it's true.
And granted, these two are new, so
the new ones they were put everything behind it. You think?
Yeah. So then doing that, and then going to some of the ones where maybe they don't care as much about Waxworks, for instance.
Yeah.
Cinema Slasher. Cinema Slasher's problems could have easily been fixed.
Totally.
If that were John Murdy walking through that maze with his fucking hat and just looking at everybody like, hey, there's not a scare actor here. There's no fog here. This is wrong there. Like I don't think they have that. Or if they do have that, it's not nearly as sharp as the operation they got at Universal.
Sure.
Because that's an easy fix. Like I said, it's a technical thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's you guys, what are you doing? Is your fog juice, you know what I mean? Right. Do you need to add more? Is it clogged up? Do you need to get fan in there? What is going on?
Like the line and we'll get you what you need.
This is a huge game changer. Like we said, showstopper moment to ruining the maze, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, otherwise we really honestly, like, we're just trying to find things to kind of criticize here because we really enjoy Knott's.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic.
Knott's it's great.
We've never regretted going. And I can't say the same for Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, and that's it's going to be a good conversation to have later. What's great about these events too is that you pay a certain amount of money and you don't want to feel like, and we have where it's like you just get in line. You get in from one line, you go to a short maze, you get into another line, you get into another maze. It just feels like so. Like it's like that vacation you go on when your itinerary is already set and it's not really a vacation, it's more work almost.
Right. You're like, we have to hit this and then this and then this and it's just in this row and there's not enough time to sit back and enjoy.
What's great about this, and maybe it's because we went not during October, we got to say that we got to preface what we're saying by that. We were able to hit these mazes and not wait in line for more than 15 minutes at any time. We stopped and got food. We had a couple of drinks. We had pizza. We sat. We enjoyed the environment. Yeah. We got back into line, which is what the lines were even shorter at that point.
Yeah, we left an hour early. You know what I mean? Like I agree. We could have hit all the mazes if we wanted to.
We could have hit all the mazes, yeah.
We just were like, feeling really good about the ones we just knew we would rather redo certain mazes than roll the dice on ones we'd been before.
A business decision, right? Like, if we're gonna have to wait in a couple more lines, let's wait in some lines for some mazes that we know we're gonna fucking like.
Yeah, absolutely. Pro tip: don't go to the maze that's immediately by the door.
That's true. Which is true last year too.
It was true last year. It's true this year. You know what I mean? Either the pro tip is either go to the ones you really, really want to hit. Like we said, these favorites, we hit them first. These new ones. Yeah, it's like hit that right away because if you at least, it's that whole thing of the business decision. If I'm not going to hit a maze or two, which ones am I okay to miss?
Yeah.
So it's like either do that, but if that maze is right by the door, then maybe come back to it.
Yeah, take that on the way out.
Yeah, exactly. We have gone in deep and then worked our way back, and it has been brilliant. This year we went a little bit different going into these new ones first, but it still worked for us because then we went deep after that. We were like, you know what? I think we can still go do this.
Yeah.
And it worked out great for us.
I think if you're going to miss two, if you have to drop two, I would be Chilling Chambers and it would be Waxworks for me. But for me. And I think
those were my bottom two as well. So I'm kind of with you as well. And we didn't go to Origins and we didn't go with Calico Origins and we didn't go to the
Room 13.
Room 13.
Yeah.
So those might be worth it this year for all we know.
Yeah, maybe. But if you haven't gone, go. But I think you got to go to Knott's. Like if you're even in the mood to do some Halloween stuff, and if you've done Universal and you're like, fuck, what is there now? Knott's is now.
Knott's is now.
Right. Maybe that's our logo. That's the thumbnail. Knott's is now.
Knott's is now.
Anything else you want to say about Knott's before we wrap it up?
No, I feel great.
All right.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, I think if you haven't gone, definitely go. Bang for your buck. It's hard to beat.
Season.
It's spooky season number 2. We got big stuff coming up too. I know we're not going to drop some dates, but we're going to have some guests that I don't think we've ever had on our show. And we're hitting it deep. We're doing 2 of our favorite immersive events that we talked about in the pre-cap. Oh man. And we're doing Hayride, which has made me very nervous of some of the reviews I've seen,
We got some stuff coming up.
But we've got the Return of Dark Harbor.
Yeah, which is also making me nervous.
Oh, don't you do this. Don't
Don't do this to me.
But stay tuned. We got some good stuff coming up. In the meantime, I'm Chris.
I'm Jessica.
Good night.
Suck it, Waxworks.